Hello, welcome to Good Work Now. I'm Dr. Brian Moffitt. Today we're going to talk about the future of work. Let's start by going back 100 years. In the early 1900s, it was the peak of the industrial era, and the assembly line was the most popular, efficient method of work at that time. And employees were entirely dependent on their supervisor for information and direction. Things have changed quite a bit in 100 years, with globalization, new technology, changing industries. But how is work going to be like tomorrow, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Are you and your children prepared to be successful in the new job market? Let's start with demographics.
Okay.
And Karen, let's start with you. What are the changes that we're expecting or with the demographics in the workplace these days?
We're going to see changes to the workplace that we never dreamed of 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at the major one, it's we're living longer.
Okay.
Used to be that people would die at 42 100 years ago, and even 20 to 30 years ago, they would leave work at 65 and die within 18 months. Actuarially, now we're living to 78, and most financial planners plan on people living to 90.
Wow.
So the aging population is going to affect the workplace significantly in the coming years.
What are some ways that employees need to prepare themselves to be successful in interacting successfully or having successful relationships with such a diverse group of people in the workplace?
Well, one of the things that's happening, Brian, is that we're seeing more and more people wanting to work like part-time, less than that 40 hours a week, because family and so on is very important to them. Baby boomers, for instance, are oftentimes split between still having children at home and having parents to take care of. The younger generations, unlike the boomers, their whole life is not work.
But that value orientation of wanting more flexibility, having
Right.
more work-life balance, that we're going to see that more in work environments. in the
Absolutely.
future.
Yeah.
So that's a crystal ball right there, is
Right.
that we got to let go of the static 40-hour work week,
Right.
working in an office, maybe the more telecommuting kinds of things going on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk now about the different industries. There's some new industries I hear that are growing as a result of some of the things that we're experiencing right now. And Karen, what are some of the industries that you foresee that are going to be growing in the future?
Well, if you're going to have an aging population, you can bet that healthcare is going to grow.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And out of the top 10 jobs in the next 10 years, it'll grow, 7 of them are healthcare. But they're not doctors and nurses. They're health aides, they're dental assistants, they're healthcare assistants,
Okay.
they're care type. So we're going to see 30 to 40% growth in that sort of
Wow,
position
okay.
in the next, by 2014 actually.
Technology is impacting the workplace and our environment in so many different ways that a lot of the jobs that will be very prominent in a few years, we don't even know what they are yet. They haven't even been developed yet.
And technology just changes so quickly that
Yes.
being nimble in the technology field, I would think, is going to be important.
Yes.
That if you're working on a project, you need to be able to move into this project real quickly and learn, be receptive to learning new technology and new information. So I imagine continuous learning
Yes.
and having that open mind is going to be very important to be successful in tomorrow's
We're going
careers.
to start looking at having people work in their own location so that you don't have to heat and maintain a huge
That's
headquarter
a
building.
really good point. That's going to be a real cost savings and a contribution to the green cause.
Yes.
Not having
Absolutely.
to heat and
Yeah.
I imagine there's other kinds of repercussions too by not having, if people stay at home, then they're not going to the office, so maybe they're not going to be visiting the nearby restaurant. I mean, there could be
Yes.
some other economic
Yes.
impacts too
All of
of
that
that. Yeah.
It could create new hubs. The hubs will
Right.
not be around a big office building necessarily. The hubs could be around a neighborhood where people are working. And so some of those services that are offered maybe around a large office building in downtown Sacramento will be out in the neighborhoods more, because that's more and more people. will
More of
be
that
working.
European village model that we've
Right.
been hearing about. Yeah.
Exactly.
One of the concerns I've heard expressed by baby boomers in particular, and I think traditionalists as well, is the concern that if people are telecommuting, they're not doing their job, or they're off goofing off, doing
Yeah.
laundry or washing their floor or watching their kid or whatever, and that there's this paradigm with those two generations that you have to have 40 hours a week at the office, and that if you're not doing that, you're not doing your job, and more attention to that and less attention to the actual outcomes.
Right.
That okay, if I deliver what you need in 30 hours, so what? that kind of thing. Do you think that that's going to shift where the attention to an artificial clock of 40 hours a week is going to fade and more emphasis will be on your deliverables and what you're accountable for?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, positively. And I think as the young people come into the workplace, that's going to happen. And we conduct our generational workshops. We hear that from younger folks all the time, is that older people like myself focus on the process, and what they want to focus on is the outcome.
What do you foresee as some of the other tools, technological tools, that might be available to people in the future? I know there's the meeting software, or virtual meetings where people can all see each other on their video cam. Do you see some of that increasing as well?
I see social networking being
that's
used more
right.
and more by organizations. In fact, now some of the high-tech organizations have their own Facebook, and they have incorporated it into their new hire orientation. So someone new to the organization doesn't have to learn from Sally, who's the bitterest employee at that organization, but can go out and find people of like interest and like backgrounds to gain information from. One of the things we know about the younger generations is they want to be heard. They weren't raised with children should be seen and not heard.
Right.
They have good, valuable information, and they want to get it to the people that can use it. And the organization that takes that to heart and listens to their employees differently, I think is going to be one of the keys to sustainability.
Okay, so that's a really good point, is that so the leaders, the managers, the directors of tomorrow need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
They need to embrace that value.
Yes.
That the younger voices are very important to listen to if
Yes.
you want to be successful, especially the size of that population.
Yes.
It's bigger than the boomers.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the last area, relationships. We talked a little bit about this in terms of social networking. Anything else to add about the future of work relationships?
It's much. I think in the future it's going to be much more collaborative, and it already is. And as you think alluded to before, kind of flattening of the organization. Young people in particular are very much into working as groups and working with each other and so on, and they don't recognize necessarily that this person's in charge. They recognize that this person is somebody who maybe can help them facilitate what they're doing and so on, but the fact that they're in charge is meaningless to them.
You know, it's interesting. I think that's one thing from the boomer generation that maybe we've inherited from our traditionalist parents, is that blind allegiance to authority.
Right.
That the boss, you
Right.
never talk back to the boss.
Right.
The boss is always right, and you have to talk nice to the boss. And then when the boss walks by, you stand at attention. That's not the case, is it, with the younger
No.
generation? I want to thank you both very
Thank
much
you.
for being on the show.
Thank
This
you.
was very stimulating, talking about the future.
Our pleasure.
I'm a sci-fi fan, so I always
There you
love
go.
looking into the future. And if you'd like to contact Karen or Kevin, let me give you some contact information for them. Their website is www.futuredecisions.com, and their phone number is 916-455-8532. And be sure to watch our show next week. We're going to be talking more in depth about the 4 generations in the workplace. Until then, keep up the good work, and thank you for watching.